Welcome to the news with me, Sibongile Ziambo. The headlines this hour. TUM gives Parliament deadline of this Tuesday to provide response on the future of their COVID-19 risk allowance. Bushiri's lawyers warned the state to bring witnesses from South Africa in the extradition case. Over 7 million Malawians struggling to access safe and potable water. Any news from elsewhere? Leading opposition presidential candidate in Congo-Brazzaville dies from COVID on polling day. Those are the headlines. I am Sibongile Ziambo. The Teachers Union of Malawi has given the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Education and Social Welfare a deadline of this Tuesday to provide a response from the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 on the future of an early agreement over their demand for COVID-19 risk allowance. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has submitted its resolution to the committee for a once-off COVID-19 payment to teachers, an agreement which was made after mediation talks between TUM and Education Ministry. The committee has not come out clear if the task force has accepted the initial arrangement with the teachers, which compelled the teachers to suspend a 2-week strike earlier this month. Chimwemwe Padata filed this report.
It appears the tussle between public teachers and government on the issue of COVID-19 risk allowance for the former might not come to an end anytime soon. This is because the decision to provide a once-off payment to the teachers was left in the hands of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 after the Parliamentary Committee on Education made the recommendation in a deal that ended a 2-week teacher sit-in. The task force is said to have responded. The task force is said to have responded to this recommendation, but the Parliamentary Committee has not made public contents of the response. Now, TUM President William Malimba says the committee has until Tuesday, 23rd March, to make the response available to the teachers or face consequences.
We don't have any information from the government. Up to now, there is nothing which is coming out.
The Parliamentary Committee on Education Chairperson Brian Kaisi could not be drawn for comment, but education activists fear the statement from Malimba could trigger another disruption to public schools. Here is one of the activists, Benedicto Kondowe.
Is really very frustrating because this could trigger another disruption. And as a country, we have lost enormously through these unprecedented closures. And we cannot afford.
The teachers accepted a once-off payment to cover a period of 3 months, but they were initially asking government to provide a risk allowance in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is Chimwemwe Padata for Zodiak.
Lawyers for Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary in the extradition case have applied to the Chief Magistrate Court in Lilongwe for the state to bring witnesses from South Africa to testify for the case to continue. Lead lawyer Wapona Kita says it is against the Extradition Act to proceed with the case using documents from the South African courts. However, Director of Public Prosecution Dr. Stephen Kayuni argues that the Bushiris are not being accused of anything in Malawi, but as fugitive offenders answering an extradition case waiting for a trial in South Africa. Western Guda was at the courts and now explains.
Prophet Shepherd Bushiri appeared before Chief Resident Magistrate Court in Lilongwe for their extradition case. The two are accused of fraud and money laundering in South Africa, where their case awaits them, and their defense lawyers applied to the court following things. The court should give direction on whether the case is criminal or civil in nature. They also asked government to provide all documents from South Africa to prepare their case. They also asked the state to provide a copy of the Zodiak treaty, which South Africa is using to prosecute or to request for their extradition. And then they also asked that witnesses that South Africa is using to prosecute the Bushiris should come here in Malawi to testify. And this is actually where our focus was, because a heated debate ensued, which has been pended for Monday at 2 o'clock. On the issue of documents, the Chief Resident Magistrate Patrick Chirwa ruled in favor of the Bushiris, and he has since given the state 14 days to provide the documents that the South African court is using so that the defense should see the way forward and prepare their.
Minister of Labour Ken Kandodo says the Tonse-led administration is doing everything possible to live up to the 1 million jobs promised to help reduce levels of unemployment in the country. Speaking after presenting a ministerial statement on the promise, Kandodo said fulfillment of the promise has slowed due to COVID-19 pandemic. And meanwhile, Minister Kandodo disclosed in Parliament that the future of dues of 48,000 ex-miners that worked under TEBA will be known this week. The Malawi Defence Force has declared lack of vehicles, saying the problem is hampering the Sanji Cup operations. Changalumi Barracks Commanding Officer, Lieutenant Colonel Masozi Gift Kaira, raised the concern when Deputy Minister of Defence Jean Sendeza visited the camp to appreciate the operations and challenges. Lieutenant Colonel Kaira says they are struggling to conduct patrols as a result. He spoke with Alfred Guta.
It has boosted our morale. He has visited us. He has seen the camp. We have informed him our challenges. It has really brought morale to the soldiers who are staying here. Mostly issues to do with the transport. To do our patrols up to Malaga, you need small vehicles like land cruisers. So the main challenge are vehicles.
The Deputy Minister of Defence has, however, assured the soldiers that the challenges will be addressed.
You know, the climate here in Nsanje is a very hot climate, and the issue of having air conditions in the rooms that the soldiers are occupying is necessary. So that is the challenge that they've highlighted, and again that as a ministry, we need to provide, water tanks. The water tank that is here has got leakages, so we need to replace with a new one. On the same, the challenges we've got, being a hilly place, we need to provide maybe extra vehicles so that they do not have problems when patrolling.
Heads of state of more than 10 countries, including President Lazarus Chakwera, have paid the last respects to Tanzanian President late Joseph Pombe Magufuli. Magufuli died last week after succumbing to heart complications. Mourning women and men carrying branches of trees ran with a fleet of vehicles carrying the remains of the departed leader on the way to the stadium where a funeral ceremony was held. On arrival in Dodoma, President Chakwera inspected a guard of honor in which he was the only one wearing a face mask. The last time he was there, he did not. Daniel Mawawa has this analysis on the change of heart by President Chakwera, which is against a narrative by Tanzania.
This is October 7, 2020, President Lazarus Chakwera on his official state visit to Tanzania. Now, clearly, if you see on the pictures, no one is wearing a mask. When I say no one, it includes the two heads of state and their respective delegations. We were told at the time that the Malawi delegation, led by President Chakwera, was asked by Tanzania not to use or wear face masks. Actually, when he welcomed President Chakwera at the airport, President John Pombe Magufuli extended this handshake to President Chakwera. Now, by the way, this was October when the pandemic COVID-19 was still raging. President John Pombe Magufuli was a COVID-19 skeptic. Actually, to date, Tanzania doesn't accept there is COVID-19, and to them, it's business as usual. That is why, if you clearly see on the screen during the live funeral ceremony for President John Pombe Magufuli, there are very few people wearing masks. Most Tanzania, the officials from the defense force are not wearing masks. But now, take a look at this. This is President Chakwera's second visit to Tanzania, this time round to attend President Magufuli's funeral ceremony. Interestingly, he's wearing a mask this time round. And that clearly sending a picture he is cautious because times have changed. He's wearing a mask. If you've seen this picture, he's wearing a mask, but the Tanzanian official who welcomed him is not. Actually, he is the only one wearing a mask. Clearly, Tanzania sending out or towing that same narrative about COVID-19, but Chakwera not taking chances this time round. Any diplomatic implications to that? That may be a game of wait and see. For now, it's rest in power, John Pombe Magufuli.
You're watching News on Zodiac. We'll be right back shortly. Stand by.
To achieve great things in life, you must do little things every day, like the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate. 1, wake up. 2, brush up. 3, smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate and give yourself a future to smile about. If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
Do your gums hurt?
Yeah.
Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile?
All that in one toothpaste?
Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums.
Ah, Colgate Herbal.
Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
Welcome back. You're with me, Sibongiriziambo. Before we continue, let's take a look at the headlines. TUM gives Parliament deadline of this Tuesday to provide response on the future of their COVID-19 risk allowance. Bushiri Royce want the state to bring witnesses from South Africa in the extradition case. Over 7 million Malawians struggling to access safe and potable water. Elsewhere, leading opposition presidential candidate in Congo Brazzaville dies from COVID on polling day. As Malawi joined the rest of the world in commemorating World Water Day, it has emerged that a larger percent of urban dwellers do not have access to clean and potable water. This forces them to turn to unsafe sources. The revelations come at a time official statistics indicate that only 87% of urban population settlers have access to potable water. Andrew Viano filed this report. Moving on, Deputy Secretary to the President in Cabinet, Dr. Janet Banda, has led the Malawi Public Service in a COVID-19 vaccination exercise at Capitol Hill in Lilongwe. And during the event, Secretary for Health, Dr. Charles Mwansambo, said government will spend 76 billion kwacha to purchase additional AstraZeneca vaccine doses, which will arrive in May. More in this report.
Early this month, the country received its first shipment of the AstraZeneca vaccine from COVAX, which was over 360,000 doses, followed by a next batch of 50,000 following week. And now, Secretary for Health Dr. Charles Mwansambo has revealed that an additional 1.2 million doses have been procured and are expected to arrive in the country before end of May this year, which will help to target population of about 11 million people and will be given out in phases. Dr. Mwansambo said a chunk of around 76 billion kwacha, which government has obtained from other supporting partners, has been used to procure the vaccine.
We're hoping to get another 1,260,000 doses before the month of May. We're getting 3.8 million doses enough for 3.8 million from Gavi, and government and partners will also bring in 7.2 million doses enough for 7.2 million people. So we hope to target 11 million people.
Dr. Mwansambo was speaking Monday morning in Lilongwe during the immunization exercise for the Malawi Public Service, which was led by Deputy Secretary for the President and Cabinet, Janet Banda, where she received her jab for the vaccine. In her remarks, Banda emphasized on the need to clear the myths about the vaccine.
WhatsApp messages that are going around scaring people about this job. I think everybody should have that responsibility to their fellow citizens to come forward and take the job.
The first phase of the immunization exercise is targeting health workers, social workers, and those aged over 60, including the ones with underlying conditions.
We now go to sports news. The Malawi national football team is in Khartoum ahead of the 2022 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against South Sudan. The match on Wednesday is one of the Flames' final two crucial fixtures in the quest to qualify for the finals of the Continental Showpiece in Cameroon next year. The Flames suffered a humiliating 4-0 defeat in a friendly match in Ethiopia last week, Sambanda reports.
The Flames left Ethiopia in the evening through a 7 o'clock plane in Addis Ababa and arrived in the Sudanese capital Khartoum at around midnight. 6 South African-based players are expected to leave today and join the squad on Tuesday after playing for their respective clubs over the weekend, whereas Europe-based Peter Banda, Francisco Madinga and Charles Petro are in transit after they flew out through Turkish capital Istanbul. The Flames were humbled 4-0 by Ethiopia in a training match last week, but the team's tactician Meke Mwase says he is not bothered by the result because he concentrated on fixing weak areas that were exposed during the friendly.
We have been working on our mistakes. The good thing is that we both understand that we did not do well. We have come up with a clear mind now that we have to work very hard for us to win the game against Sudan. The boys are in their top form and we hope they continue doing that when we play against South Sudan.
Meanwhile, all the players and technical staff have tested negative for COVID-19 after 2 rounds of testing, according to FAM's competitions and media manager Gomeziani Zakazaka.
For the 2 training sessions on Tuesday, it's going to be a full house going into the match on Wednesday. We had COVID-19 tests this side, 2 of them before the match against Ethiopia as well as yesterday, and I can confirm also that both tests came out negative. That's for the entire delegation.
The Flames are third in Group B with 4 points from 4 round-robin games, and they are expected to host Ugandan Cranes in their final fixture of the qualification campaign in Blantyre next Monday.
In news from across the borders, the leading opposition presidential candidate in Congo Brazzaville, who was seriously ill with COVID-19, has died hours after polls closed. Kai Brice Bofat Killas died on a plane taking him to France for treatment, his campaign director said. Hours earlier, the 61-year-old had appeared in a video shared on social media where he removed his oxygen mask and told his supporters that he was fighting death. He urged them to vote in Sunday's polls. The electoral law doesn't annul the election if one of the candidates dies. Mr. Kolelas, who was diabetic, was one of 6 candidates running against President Denis Sassou Nguesso, age 77, who has been in power since 1979, except for a 5-year period after losing elections in 1992. Congo Brazzaville has officially recorded more than 9,000 cases of COVID-19 and 130 deaths. And that's how we conclude this edition of news. And before we leave you, let's take a look at the headlines. TUM gives Parliament deadline of this Tuesday to provide response on the future of the COVID-19 risk allowance. Bushiri lawyers want the state to bring witnesses from South Africa in the extradition case. And over 7 million Malawians struggling to access safe and potable water. In news from elsewhere, leading opposition presidential candidate in Congo-Brazzaville dies from COVID on polling day. Visit our website zodiacmalawi.com for more news. If you're in the target groups for the second phase of COVID-19 vaccine, please go for the jab without fail. You could save your life and that of others. My name is Kwagwanji. Goodbye.
Presenting Mr. Money!